Hi, gang. I'm Dr. Maureen Hayes, and this is your latest edition of the Redox 5. And we are actually the Redox 3, but we're going to bring you tons of information. You're going to feel like there's all five of us here. Jim Glenn and Ann Glenn are off tonight celebrating with their families. And I was just telling the doctors here that I'm going to be sneaking out early because my kids had surprised me and they're already here. So, in any case, we've got a great show for you tonight. Of course, it's me, Dr. Maureen Hayes from Galveston, Texas, and Dr. Lee Osler from Washington State. And as you know, Dr. Lee has written a number of books on redox, including healthy lifestyle. And we're going to be talking about the redox lifestyle tonight with Dr. Richard Michaels from North Carolina, who's a family practitioner who was introduced to this and has a great story to tell. But before we get on this call, we were talking about how you can really optimize using this product. And if you don't mind, we're going to start with a little bit of a description about what we're talking about. Now, let me give a disclaimer. We're all medical professionals. We're all members of the ASEA Medical Professional Board. But this company is not a medical company. Our products are not medical products. We're not here to diagnose, treat, or prevent anything. What we're here is to teach you about a life science breakthrough that is unbelievable and actually works at the cellular level to turn on different processes in the cell that lead to overall health and resilience to stress. So we're not doing anything. The product's not doing anything. What it's doing is arming your body to enhance its healing and enhance its function. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring, and without further ado, I'm going to bring on a fan favorite, Dr. Rich Michaels. Dr. Michaels, come and join us and share with us a little bit about your background, about how you got in, and then let's talk about what people should be expecting with these products and how they can get the best possible result.
Sure, Maureen. Thank you so much. And welcome and upcoming happy holidays. Merry Christmas to all. Just
Happy
saw
Hanukkah. It's the last day
Happy
of
Hanukkah. There you go. We're going to cover it all. Just saw a wonderful movie that deals with the Christmas story. So I, I'm going to put a plug in for anybody that's interested in learning more about that and the life of Christ, The Chosen. You need to pick up on The Chosen. It's an incredible series that really puts it in everyday lingo and everyday um, experiences and stuff that we can connect with. I think in a meaningful way. But honestly, Dr. Hayes, in a really tangible way, ASEA was a gift, because we think about gift giving at this time of year and the incredible gift that the knowledge of this product brought to my family. Real quickly, I'm a family doc by trade. I was matriculated at UNC Chapel Hill undergraduate. They have been known to play basketball in the past pretty well, so we'll see how they're doing this year. But changed one shade of blue to another, went to Duke Medical School. And so graduated from there, did a residency up in Virginia, and I've been back in North Carolina doing family medicine, really traditional medicine, for over a long period of time, shall we say. Started a faith-based clinic, and at the height of the clinic, we employed over 10 doctors and nearly 70 staff altogether. Did not do OB, and I didn't want to deliver the 51st baby. 50 was fine by my count. But busy. And honestly, medicine has gotten so fast and it's changed through the years. Dentistry has as well, as Dr. Osler can point out. So, busy, really 14-hour days. Dr. Hayes knows that grind, and weekends, Saturday working, catching up on paperwork, and even before and after church on Sundays. So, life was a blur, really. And honestly, I know pharmacology, I know medications really well, but did not have time to look at supplements any way, shape, or form. Any way, shape, or form. Just too busy. And it wasn't a smokescreen. It was just honest. I had people come to me for different things. Nope, no time because it was honest. But life happens to everybody, doesn't it? I'm sure life happens to everybody on this call. And when life happened to us, it hit us really kind of between the eyeballs. It was 2 days actually after Christmas. And I got a call from my daughter. And it's a call that no doctor wants to really get because we know too much. But after about 3 sentences about my 13-year-old grandson, I told her immediately, honey, get him in the car, take him to the pediatric emergency room. It's about 15 minutes from where they live. They'll never find your place, but you can find them. And because he was seriously, seriously ill. He was transferred after an initial evaluation at the emergency room to Duke, my alma mater. And folks, you never want to be the star patient at any university medical center. You do not want to be that person, but he was. And for the next 5 weeks, he's in the hospital. I went there on rounds on Saturdays, on the weekends. Basically, we have a 13-year-old kid who is going to face plant if he takes a few steps. He couldn't swallow. He ends up with a feeding tube, age 13. And he could not speak. He could understand, but he could not speak. So, many ways, shapes, and forms, he represented kind of an adult who has different neurologic medical challenges, and it can happen at any age. But in his situation, it was probably because of a nasty little thing that crawls on our skin and sometimes brings infection. So at any rate, he's leaving there, goes to pediatric rehab. The family's having to change everything, about where they put him in the house, what they do for him. And they went through a period, honestly, of trying all sorts of stuff because really Duke had said, we don't have anything that can treat this issue. So you can imagine, I don't know if anybody on this call has ever felt kind of helpless in a situation, but I felt helpless, Maureen. I felt helpless. I felt impotent, both as a doctor, because maybe I could find a way that the brightest minds at Duke couldn't find, but I couldn't. But I'm also Gideon's grandfather, and I've got that heart to want to help, and I can't. And so I really felt horribly. And long story short, a CF found its way into his life. And it stayed in their pantry for a few months, I found out, as they were trying other things. But, they finally, a CF found its way. And within 4 to 5 weeks or so, my daughter, who homeschools all the kids, she noticed unbelievable changes in a positive way for him. And so, with a large family like they've adopted 3. Gideon's one of the adopted guys. And she's now pregnant with their 9th biologic. You have a lot of birthdays and you try to cluster them. And they were clustering a couple of birthday celebrations. We were going up there. And Anna said, Dad, do you want to hear about something that's changing Gideon's life in a positive way? And I said, oh my goodness, yeah. Well, what's going on? I figured it was some pharmacologic agent and, some new research breakthrough. Well, it turns out it is a research breakthrough, but it wasn't a pharmacologic agent. And honestly, I said, sure, I'd be willing to hear that. And then I heard Ed and Rebecca Weens and Paul and Fred Logis and Dick Walker. And they all talked about the same thing, which I was really ignorant on, and that was redox biochemistry. And they kept saying redox. And I thought, I remember a little bit about that, but I don't think that we must not be talking about the same thing because honestly, I don't think that occupied much of any kind of bulk of my training. And it turned out it didn't because we didn't know anything about it. But in the last 10 to 20 years, there have been major, major breakthroughs, and it's great. It's great that we live in a field, both medicine and dentistry, where there's research going on all the time. And we found out that this is the basis of life. I mean, to go from a nothing to the basis of life, folks, that's a big step. That is a huge step. But it's an incredible one. And honestly, it got me looking. And I started to take a heavy look. If I was at my office doing this, you'd see behind me a set of textbooks, spent hundreds of dollars. Felt like I was going back to medical school again because I wanted to really learn about the biochemistry of this redox biochemistry. And as I read about it, I said, my goodness, the blinders are off. I'm opening up to this incredible field. And honestly, the rest of the world is catching up, folks, because there are multi-million dollars of investment going into redox laboratories all around the world now. So just think, over the last 10 years to go from just really a very small cadre of people who understood this and were pioneering in it. And now it's really on the forefront of really medical biological research. So, this is an incredible thing. It changed my grandson's life, really in a positive way. Kid who would face plant walking a few steps, and lo and behold, 5 years later, he's in the top, I think, 5 or 6 nationwide in cross country running in homeschoolers. So cognitively, he came back. He and I exchange books all the time. I've got a few. I've given him a few. But he had trouble even handling 1 or 2 items, he really early on. And so the change in his life prompted me to look. When I looked, the biochemistry is there. It's not up for debate anymore. It really isn't. And the cool thing is that ASEA really has an incredible corner on the market, if you will, in terms of redox. It's just unbelievable what it does. And it's about as close to cheating as you can get, really.
Biohack.
It's close to cheating because, I'm certain we'll talk about it, but, our lives are filled with stress. I mean, whose life on this call is not filled with stress? I mean, we are. And, some of that we bring on ourselves. Some of it is external. It's thrust upon us. And it's true that we're each responsible for how we respond to that stress. And our bodies, a little bit of tugging back and forth is good. I was in the gym today, and I was stressing my body a little bit. I stressed it aerobically, and I stressed it with weights, and that was a good stress. The only way my muscles will stay toned, will grow, my body composition will fight against the grain, which as we age, folks, there's a medical term. I'm sorry to get medical, but sarcopenia, and it means muscle wasting. It means that is the natural trend. And look, just a show of hands, how many people want to just give in to aging? I don't want to. I really don't want to. But, the knowledge of, okay, if that's the natural course, can I do anything that would subvert that, cause that course to be less of a slope? I have less of that problem. And the fact of the matter is now we know more, and now we know how to do that. So all these stresses, to a certain degree, a little bit of stress is actually good. You know, being under the gun to present that term paper, it gets people moving to get the thing done, to have deadlines, to have things that we have to work against. There's, when there's stress, there can be great reward at the end of that, how we deal with that. But from a medical standpoint, this is about as close to cheating as you can get, honestly, because
Dr. Michael, I'd love to bring Dr. Osler in, because
yes,
what you're
please.
talking about, and there's a new term that I heard recently, and I absolutely love it, called inflammaging. And so a lot of what we're talking about is inflammation in the body. And what we have is something that can put the fire out. But I love, because you're tap dancing around the whole idea of, a healthy lifestyle. And Dr. Osler has written the book on this. He wrote Redox Matters, and then he wrote Healthy Matters. I think I have the titles right. There's a number. There's the Matters series, as I like to call it. And so it talks about this. And I think this is something really, really important for people. Dr. Lee, if you don't mind kind of talking about what redox signaling molecules are, and kind of talking about, the redoxome. And when he talks, Dr. Lee taught us a new word, hormesis, which is that stress you're talking about that is actually good for the body, strengthens the body. So would you mind speaking to that a little bit, Dr. Osler?
I would be happy. I'll just make one little short comment that stuck out at me when Richard talked about his 13-year-old grandson. How old is he now, Richard?
He's 19.
So, he's 6 years down the road, but I was just thinking, if none of that would have happened, and now he's 23 or 33 or 43, can you imagine the impact this has had in his total? It's not like he was 89 and, had one foot on the edge of the grave, and, but this is his entire life now that has taken a completely different path. And it's just sad to think of what it could have been like. It's just a marvelous miracle for your family. So yeah, the whole point of redox, and let me start, I guess, by also saying, a disclaimer. We're talking about a company here, ASEA Global, which is producing a supplement, and therefore FDA supplement rules apply. We don't make claims. We don't talk about diseases. That's why we talked about that thing crawling on the skin that sometimes bites us, rather than naming it specifically. And so we don't do that, and we stay compliant. So you'll notice our compliant language here, but you can connect the dots on your own or in private conversations with somebody else. So with that disclaimer said, what redox is reduction oxidation. It's the movement of electrons. The point is that everything in life is about a polar gradient, meaning it's an electrical field or an electrostatic field where things that are alike repel each other and things that are opposite are attracted. And that's what moves these electrons around from molecules to molecules, which is the foundation of redox. And so what we're talking about is the functionality inside a cell that detects when it's in trouble, that senses when there's a problem, and the mechanism that is put in place to solve the problem. Something has to happen, and those somethings that happen can either be in a good way or a bad way. There's a consequence either way. And so what we're talking about, because of redox, is the state of oxidation. When molecules are missing an electron in their orbit, there's planets around the sun, so there's electrons in the orbit of atoms, and when it's missing, it is said to be oxidized or in an oxidative state. And when it steals or acquires or gets an extra electron to stabilize it, it then becomes reduced. So that's the RED part of redox. And so when we are in a state of oxidation, meaning we're missing those electrons, our cell knows to signal a response to that, and we call that oxidation stress. So when Dr. Michael said we have stress, it's not just emotional stress because my wife drives me crazy or my dogs drive me crazy. it's physiological stress. It's from digesting glucose in the mitochondria and making energy. And so this physiological stress that occurs just from breathing oxygen, literally, has to be dealt with in some way, or we create inflammation from it and disease. That's what triggers inflammation. But the body has an ingenious way of responding to that by creating antioxidants. We know those as glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and others that come in and they have spare electrons to say, here, my oxidized neighbor atom, you take my electron and calm down and become balanced again. That's homeostasis. And so we go in and out and in and out of these states based on what's going on in our life and what toxins we're exposed to and what we've eaten or not eaten, and on and on. And so this is a mechanism that is a designed, conserved mechanism that allows us to be resilient. It allows us to be responsive to what's going on in and around our lives. And if we didn't have that mechanism, we would die. And because we have it, we have a chance of maintaining health, but it wears out. That sarcopenia that he talked about, the muscle wasting, that's a 1% per year. We're declining 1% a year, 10% a decade in our ability to keep pace with aging and those detrimental events. And so what ASEA has is a supplement that allows me to fill up my gas tank, as it were. I can restore, replenish, refurbish, rejuvenate. I can build that capacity back up and stay resilient and responsive to the stress that comes. And that's what keeps me healthy. So that's hopefully a kind of a quick flyover of some of the basic concepts there. I'll toss it back to Richard. Maybe he can fill in the blanks.
No, that's great, Lee. And I like your concept, your thought about the, because I use this with folks quite a bit, is the gas tank concept. And I think it speaks to the fact that many of us, depending upon your age, and you just kind of think it out, if your production of these life-changing, absolutely essential molecules goes down 10% every decade after, say, puberty, just kind of do your quick math on the back of a envelope, and you're just, some of us on the call probably doing fair, but some of us are hurting pretty badly. And I mean, we are in a deficit, and that's just the natural state of what happens to us. Heaven forbid all the other things. If I don't eat right, if I don't exercise, if I'm not getting proper restorative sleep, et cetera, then that deficit is going to be worse. And just as Dr. Osler said, filling a gas tank. I mean, I just ask you, think about going on a long trip. If you only have to top it off, maybe you've got 2/3 of a tank. How long does it take you to pump the gas in? Now let's take the same trip, but you're on fumes, and now you're pumping, and you want to get that gas tank filled up because you're going on that long trip. Well, it's going to take you what? Longer. It's just going to take you longer to do it. So I would really caution folks that are really, they're using the supplement or even contemplating it. Please, think that it's going to take time. Think that it's going to take time. And, given you kind of have a self-evaluation of where your stress points have been, you kind of know about your lifestyle, and your age, and just give it time, because one of the worst things, and I deal with both pharmacology and supplements, and I kind of balance that, but there are very, 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 very few pharmacologic agents that work immediately or in a very short period of time. I mean, there are very, very few of those. And I think delivering proper expectations to what patients want and expect that sets the stage for success, folks. And you just need to give usage of this incredible supplement that can really replenish and replace what you need, what your body needs. Just give it time, and I think I typically now, for pretty much all comers, look at that 90 to 120 day window and just say, hey, make certain you're taking it properly, make certain you're going to give it longevity, and then be expectant, because I'm going to tell you, our biochemistries are quite a bit alike, actually.
Dr. Michael, I love that you're bringing that up. And I love that analogy of topping off the tank. That is really cool. Because for some people who are doing all the right things, they're not getting the results they're looking for. They add the redox to it, and it's like it flipped a switch. But it's incredible how much more we're learning about this. So you say to give it time. We also need to make sure that people are not only just giving it time and being consistent with it, that they're taking enough and that they're taking it correctly. So studies that the company has done show that if you take it and you hold it in your mouth for 20, 30 seconds, you're going to absorb about 85% of those molecules directly through the oral mucosa. So if you take a sip of it, hold it in your mouth, you don't have to hold it there for 5 minutes. Just hold it for 20, 30 seconds, swish it around, gargle if you like, swallow it. If it's for some people, it makes them a little sick to their stomach or whatever, causes some GI distress. If that's you initially, you can spit it out. You've got 85% of those molecules in the first 20, 30 seconds. It also causes a cascade effect. So they're tiny, high energy molecules get absorbed directly into the cell, where they turn on different processes. They cause communication with the cells around them that lead to a cascade or a domino type of effect that leads to that, what we were talking about before, that overall wellness and resilience to stress. So what they're finding is if you take a smaller amount more often during the day, like my husband and I, because we come from that, pharmacodynamic type of background, we were like, oh, we must be in steady state. We can just drink it all in the morning and we're good to go. No, that's not the most effective way of taking it. So take it, hold it in your mouth, swish it around. Dr. Lee can talk about this because he's an expert on the oral mucosa and oral health. And then take it more often during the day. So if you're going to take 4 ounces, break it up. 8 ounces, break it up during the day so that you're constantly turning those cascades back on and you'll get a better effect. But I think what you said, Dr. Michael, is give it time. Our blessing, and this was a gift. My husband had a big health challenge, and we got on the product, said on the back of the bottle, 2 ounces twice a day. We're already on fumes, like Dr. Michaels was talking about. When we got started, we were in our 50s. We're now in our 60s. So we had a pretty good deficit going. And I wouldn't say that we had the absolute best lifestyle. Everybody can improve. So it took a while. It was 6 to 8 weeks before we really got an effect from it. And I was ready to throw in the towel, call it a scam, but it's not. It can't not work. It may not do what you're looking for exactly. It may take a little time to get around to it, but it works in every single person. So I really appreciate your making that distinction, because I think sometimes people stop it before they get what I like to call their blessing or their gift from the redox.
One comment about that is that's why I'm typically now, when people ask, folks, the pouches are dynamite, because it's already measured out for you, 8 ounces. If I want to follow evidence-based stuff, I like 8 ounces because there's a lot behind that amount in a day's time. But what's cool is, around where I am now, I have pouches over here. I have pouches all over the place. And, it's like there's pouches everywhere, because when I go into a room, I see, it's time to put a couple ounces in there, swish it, hold it like a wine taster. And they're great. You can put it in your car, on the car seat. I mean, you can put it in your gym bag. I mean, honestly, the concept that Dr. Hayes recommended is absolutely solid. And, having those small aliquots or small little bite-sized pieces, if you will, throughout the day is incredibly helpful. Maybe when you're first starting out, you need to do it in chunks, but if you can do it in small bite-sized pieces, that's really important. I think it's helpful. And I think that's why the pouches, in my mind, make it easy peasy to do that.
Yeah, user friendliness is certainly an issue here, isn't it? Just remembering, to do it. So
Yeah, and the pouches actually have a one-way valve, so the saliva is not going to go back in and denature it. I know that there's a lot of people who like to drink directly off the bottle. That's okay if you're going to drink it, within a short period of time. Otherwise, your saliva is going to interact with it. And the things that the molecules interact with are minerals, which is why we say don't drink it out of anything metal, and organic matter, which, your saliva, if you have food in your mouth, people say drink it on an empty stomach. Most of it is being absorbed through the oral mucosa. But if you've got, if you're taking a bite of a burger and then swigging your ASEA, it's going to work on that burger, So this stuff's not cheap. So get the best, the full effect of it. So make sure your, mouth is as clean as it possibly can be. And Dr. Lee, you can talk about this because a lot of people get worried about fillings in their mouth or braces or retainers or things like that. What do you advise your patients?
well, we know that the absorption is rapid. And so I think I'm not going to say it's a 0%, issue. But obviously the benefits of having it in your mouth, even if you had a metal crown or a metal filling or something like that, the effects of it, in my opinion, are minuscule. The surface area of contact in the mouth and the esophagus, the back of the throat, is so much more. If you laid all that out flat and said you'd have a large surface area of tissue that would be absorbing that. We constantly recommend some medicines being sublingually applied because it goes straight into the blood system and bypasses the liver and the gut. And so this is the same concept. We're bypassing the gut, we're bypassing the liver. It's getting straight into the bloodstream through sheer absorption right in through the cells.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it is a mechanism of surface area. So, what we've been told by the scientists, and they're constantly studying different effects on the product, everything from surface area of the mouth to temperatures to they even take because we have people in very cold areas and very hot areas. So they put the product through all of those different tests to see how it is affected by those. But anyway, you guys, if you don't mind, it's after the half of the hour, and I really, I so appreciate all of you. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. I will see you guys all. I think January 6th is our first date, isn't it, Dr. Lee, after the new year?
Oh.
So you guys have blessed holidays with your family and loved ones, and I will see you in the new year. Bye. Thanks so much. Thanks, Dr. Michaels. Thanks, Dr. Lee. I'm going to leave you in the hands of these brilliant gentlemen. So have fun. Take care. Bye, guys.
So, Dr. Richard, the thought I had with your tank, your gas tank idea was maybe it might take 90, 120 days or whatever, but I think that the thought that I had was that if you were already very resilient, if you had this high level capacity because you were really healthy, you may not notice a big difference from having a full tank versus maybe one that was only 5% empty versus if you were 70% empty, And so this capacity, this innate ability that you may already have, it's like you've already put money in the bank, your bank account's already rich. So, and then we come along with this. Why would somebody who might be healthy, why would somebody who says, well, I don't need that, I'm pretty healthy? What would your comment be?
Oh gosh, yeah, great thought actually. There's a couple of ways to approach this. I mean, one obvious one is this: there are some people that are actually truly, truly very, very healthy. Even when you study them and look at them. And but they even get benefits from redox. And then we're talking about finely tuned athletes. Finely tuned athletes, and there may be some on the call tonight. I think what's primary for most people that are into either their livelihood as an athlete or competition is as a avocation, something that they enjoy an awful lot, is simply put, they want to beat you. They want to beat you. And, but I don't want to get disqualified doing it. I mean, that'd be horrendous, So gosh, how do I get a leg up? And the way many, many, many athletes have found to get a way up is replenishing these redox molecules. And talk about stress. They're finely tuned. Their numbers may look great, but they know that they improve. They have personal bests in endurance and all sorts of parameters that they measure when they're taking this cheating liquid, the cheating supplement, if you will. But the point is that it's been approved by, the organizations that could disqualify them, but they know they can't because it's native to the body. So this is just, it's a really win-win situation for those folks, Lee. But there's a whole group of people that I see. I'm doing a concierge practice now, and I'll have people who come to me say, I really know I'm coming here because I want to have better health and so forth. But sometimes I'll get a bunch of people come there thinking, hey, I'm pretty hot stuff. I think I'm doing great. Maybe I'm on a medicine or two, but I work out and I do this and I do that. And a lot of times the danger is we equate a level of health, if you will, or a level of being satisfied in this area with, I don't feel anything wrong. And we know that there's a real danger in waiting till something feels wrong to declare I have a need. And that equation can be, very life-changing in bad ways for people. There's a thing we call plaque buildup in arteries. It's something that medically doesn't produce a lot of symptoms until they go pop. Pop goes the weasel. And if a plaque pops inside your artery, folks, bad things can happen. And now we're having symptoms. Well, what are those symptoms? If they're in the arterial bed, we have 30,000 miles of arteries. That's a big interstate system, by the way. And so we've got plaque. And if the blood supply is towards the head, the brain, then we might have stroke-like symptoms, neurologic symptoms. If it's in the heart vascular bed, we will have symptoms that mimic and really are heart attack symptoms. So, but what happened? That plaque was there the whole time. It just decided, the little cap over it decided to go pop. And you get a little blood clot over that, just like you would any broken surface on the skin. And the problem is that plaque was limiting blood flow anyway, and now we've got a real limitation. So the bottom line in this concept is this: the lack of symptoms does not mean that I have a lack of need. It's a danger for everybody, all of us, to get into. And so when you start doing testing on folks, you say, I'm sorry to tell you, but I've got, based on the testing, I think there's some issues going on. Let's do a couple of tests that look at your anatomy. Let's just see. And, if Dr. Michael's wrong, you tell Dr. Michael to back off, and I'll back off. But the point is that there are many, many people who often have really significant, I'll just use the word plaque because that's the subject I brought up, and they have no symptoms at all. And they've not thought they had a problem. So all of a sudden we detect something and we go after it. So, those folks on the call that are really doing the right things, and there are some really, really good things that we can do naturally to help the situation, but be careful about falling into that trap of, oh, no symptoms, I must be on the top of my game, I don't even need this stuff. We know that biologically you're going to need it based on age alone.
Yeah, even neurological or neurodegenerative issues, before they show up symptomatically or so that they could be observed and diagnosed, they started 10, 15 years before that time. I mean, that's just a number that's kind of hanging out there, which means you went a decade or even maybe 2 decades with this slow deteriorating spiral in your brain cell protective mechanisms before you even showed a symptom. And if people who become cognitively challenged or go into decline if we could take them back 10 years in time and begin to think differently, even though they didn't feel anything, right? I'm sure that their family would love to have them back in their life if they could only do that. So let's use that as a segue, and let's talk about lifestyle. This is one of your areas of expertise professionally, obviously, but let's talk about it in the context of Redox Lifestyle. Why do we call it Redox Lifestyle and not just lifestyle?
Oh yeah. Well, we know that there are certain things that we can do that will help with this imbalance that we've kind of talked about. Again, it's kind of like that a tug of war. Imagine a tug of war, and you're on one side, and the other team's on the other side, and you're both going back and forth, and there's a little bit of give and a little bit of take. And actually, during that process, over time, you're building muscle, quite honestly, which is not a bad thing. But if the other team gets a couple of big bruisers over there and they start pulling you, and in the middle is this chasm, and there's some bad stuff, and if I'm pulled into that chasm, it is not going to be pretty. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of that chasm. And you can feel yourself being pulled and pulled and pulled, and you're looking at your team and going, hey, who's going to help us? Who's going to help us? And honestly, a CS supplement is a big, big help. But there are some other guys that we can put on our team to kind of help in this tug of war, back and forth, where little tugs are fine. It's the big tugs that do you in, okay? And so, we look at things like one of the favorite things I've really discovered for my patients and actually for myself has been a concept where, in many countries, especially ours, and we're blessed by lots of food. We can have food all the time. Dr. Hayes talked about that big juicy burger that we can pop in and find almost any time of the day, by the way. But it's been shown that actually depriving yourself of caloric intake, especially the carbs that we have, can be extremely important in helping us fight this imbalance. And really, so something as simple as deciding I'm going to extend the time I don't eat can really build tremendous benefits besides just losing weight, improving blood sugar, and a host of other things, that can be very, very helpful. It cuts against the grain, which is I have food at my disposal anytime I want to, and it's a simple thing. Exercise for some people is a 4-letter word. But it's one of those simple things that can be done and repetitively is incredibly powerful. And this is where, a balance between what we call aerobic or, it'd be things like walking, power walking. It could be a stationary bike. It could be a treadmill. It could be an elliptical. That's my favorite form of torture, but I love it. And the companies have gotten very good now. You can play solitaire on them, and you don't even feel the pain, during that time. And you're cognitively using your brain, so that can help against the other thing, the neurodegenerative part, because you're using hand-eye coordination and so forth, using math skills and so forth. So, but honestly, adopting a lifestyle of exercise. And again, you adapt it to your situation. If you're in a environment where it's unsafe to go outside walking, then look for a good gym, look for a place. I mean, they make very inexpensive stationary bikes that can be folded up and not used just for clothes hangers, and I mean, we can actually utilize our space to improve our health. And it's just absolutely amazing. One of the funny things is when people come and say, well, I just don't have any energy. I say, how willing are you to just power walk, 15 to 20 minutes, at least 5 days a week for the next 2 weeks? Are you willing to do that? And of course, I joke with them. I say, oh, I did listen to what you said. You don't have energy. I got that. But I say, I'll challenge you. You do that consistently and come back in 2 to 3 weeks and tell me you don't have more energy. You just will. You just will. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And one other thing, as Dr. Lee brought out, was the neurocognitive thing. And that's a big deal. I mean, that's a big scare. That's like that shark attack that leaves the person intact, but has really, really taken away something of tremendous value. I mean, tremendous. It's one of the hardest things that we have to face in working with families and loved ones. It's a scary thing, honestly, when it's sad when a spouse comes in and says to the other one, who are you in the room? I'm going to call the police on you. Well, it's the spouse, but they don't recognize who that man or woman is in the room. It's a stranger. And that's so sad. And we talked about the breakthroughs in science in terms of redox. I mean, folks, just in the past few years, we found entire highways, if you will, in the brain that are dealing with disposing. Guess what? There's still garbage that goes on in processes in the brain. And it's like getting rid of the garbage. And when the sanitation trucks don't come by your place and you place the garbage in a certain area, the pickup spot, but the trucks don't come, what happens? The garbage piles up. And there's some intriguing things coming out in the neurological realm that deal with excess garbage, proteins. Whether these proteins, they are certainly associated with people with neurocognitive decline. Are they causative? Interesting kind of concept. We're parsing that out. But the point is this. These pathways, these conduits, allowing the trucks in to get the garbage out, these proteins that we don't need there. It seems like there's a magic window of sleep that allows the trucks to come in, do their job, and leave. And that window is 7 to 9 hours. And, for many, many years, doctors, we busy schedules, right? All the time. And it was just like, what a revelation that we really need to try to get very good sleep, restorative sleep, and the amazing things that are going on during that. So, Dr. Lee, great thoughts. But these are simple things that we can cascade. Dr. Hayes talked about the redox molecules being involved in a cascade, and we can actually do additive things to not only do what this is doing, but to help augment that. Who doesn't want to get their tank filled up a little faster? Maybe I can fill it up a little faster. Maybe I can't afford, uh, a whole bottle a day of this stuff, but maybe I can do some other things that will augment what it's doing. And that's where we are. And I think everybody on the call that is a user, please realize that you have a tremendous leg up, but maybe the job is not all done. You can augment what you need to do. And this is that lifestyle that Dr. Osler has written a book about.
Yeah, thank you. Those are some really great thoughts. We've back to the point of we've spent 30, 40, 50, 60 years, piling up this garbage, and the mechanisms for removing it or cleaning out. We in the biochemical or biologic world, we call that process autophagy. It's self-eating. We're eating up the garbage that we've created, the damaged proteins, the folded proteins that occur because of metabolism. Those pile up inside the cell, and if we don't have a mechanism activated that will clean those out and renew and rejuvenate the cell, then it increases the mistakes inside the cell, and it creates more oxidation, which creates inflammation. And so that's there. I'd like to maybe just kind of add on to what you said, because for some people, this might be still a little bit esoteric. It's kind of like, oh, what does this mean? And when we talk about lifestyle, there isn't anybody who's listening to this that doesn't understand that their life would be more healthy if they exercised and ate right, however you want to define that, and reduce their stress and slept right, and so on and so forth. But the question is, how do you get there, and why does quote unquote lifestyle work? And the whole point of this hormesis thing that Dr. Hayes, asked us to comment on, is that hormesis is technically it's a biphasic, meaning there's two phases to a single thing. So it's a biphasic response to this state of oxidation, or this redox state that occurs in the cell. When I have, in other words, inside the cell, it's really, think of it simplistically as it's binary. I'm either oxidized or I'm not. I'm either oxidized or I'm not. I'll say it again. You're either oxidized or you're not. And then when you're oxidized, it's a matter of how much you're oxidized. Are you oxidized a lot, or are you oxidized a little, right? And so if you understand that little simple concept, then you can look into your lifestyle and you can get into what we call biohacking, because I can manipulate those parameters. If oxidation is the key, because oxidation is what turns on the redox switches that activate these pathway genes. If I know which ones and how to do it, I can do it on purpose. I can do it on command or on demand. I can manipulate that. And in a way, it's not artificial, because it's the way our bodies were designed, but I can do it with intention, is my point. So if I have high levels of oxidation, that goes down a pathway of inflammation. That creates disease. If I have low oxidation, that is a slight, we call it hormesis, or slight hormetic stress on the cell that activates the response to be well, the protective, the defense, the we call it cytoprotective or cell protective. You could think of it as the survival genes. We're turning on survival pathways there. And so knowing that, we go back to lifestyle and say, well, what is it about lifestyle that causes this pathway to activate that creates healthy responses in my genes, so that I have plenty of oxidants, I have good autophagy, et cetera. So let's go back, Richard, and just talk about your diet thing. If you stopped eating, we call that fasting. We're not talking starvation. We're just saying, I'm going to not eat for a while. You can call it caloric restriction or whatever. Then the question is, what happens to my glucose levels in my body? So in the body, glucose is always the first molecule to be burned. If it's available, it gets burned. But if it's not there, then I have to flip a switch and burn fat, because You can't not burn something or you'll die. You've got to have energy. And so by fasting or by simply not eating carbohydrates to make the glucose, I'm favoring the conditions that will activate what we call a keto state, or a mild oxidative state that activates these pathways. And so we're inducing a mild bit of stress when we fast, when we exercise, because I'm using up glucose when I exercise. We're inducing a mild bit of stress when we take phytonutrients or vitamins. That creates a slight bit of mitochondrial stress. And anytime I manipulate or hack or influence those conditions, I'm turning on the pathway genes that protect me. And that's exactly what ASEA is doing, is I'm creating a mild state of stress in the cell that turns on these redox pathways that create health. And it does it directly because it's influencing that state. That's that rapid absorption signaling concept that we were talking about. So if we folded all this together, that's why redox and why lifestyle, that's why they go hand in hand, is because I can now go out there, as Dr. Hayes always points out. It says if you've got a remote, a TV remote in one hand and a Twinkie in the other hand, and you're sitting on the couch, but you're drinking your ASEA, you're not doing yourself any favor, because it's not plussing, it's not additive, it's not compounding. And so we want to kick those things in. So anyway, I hope that was not overly complicated, but your final thoughts there, Richard, if you could, we're getting close to the hour, if you could summarize that up and give us some takeaways.
Sure. Well, folks, those that are using the product, use it in the right amounts, use it in the right way. We've kind of talked about how you hold it, swish it. You're going to get most of the absorption that way. It is a process that give it time. That is very, very important. And then along the way, give thanks for this. Give thanks for this, because this company could have gone a completely different direction. Give thanks, all of those that are using it. This is an appropriate time of the season to give thanks, of the year. And then don't lose the opportunity to get further legs up, to enhance, to become almost additive and synergistic in your approach to improving your state, which is using the ASEA Redox, but also taking advantage of other opportunities that we've talked about tonight. Look at that diet, look at intermittent fasting, look at the advantages of that, look at exercise. Let's not make excuses for why we can't. Let's look for workarounds of how we can, and how we can be synergistic, how we can be people that are committed to this as a lifestyle. And it's just an incredible time that we're in, Dr. Lee. Research is advancing. We're learning more and more about the benefits of this, and it's exciting. And stay tuned. There's going to be more and more coming out about it, for sure. But now's the time. Now's the time to put it into action in all of our lives, and we're thankful for that.
Well, thank you, Dr. Michael, for being a guest with us on the Redox 5 tonight. We appreciate all you represent and what you teach, and the fine work that you're doing. And for those who are listening in, feel welcome to share this with others. If you're new to this and you're wondering about what this is all about, talk with the person who invited you. Get your questions answered. There's plenty of resources online that are respectable. There's some that aren't, who are from people that don't really know what this is about at all. But there are answers out there. This recording of this session will be at redoxmatters.com in probably an hour or two. And there are some other resources at that website, redoxmatters.com, that you can access to further deepen your understanding of redox and redox signaling. But we appreciate your time with us tonight. As we mentioned earlier, we will not be meeting this next week. This is our holiday season, obviously, and so we hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. We will be reconvening that first Friday prior to New Year's, and we'll have a new show, a new kickoff. We've got several guests lined up for January that will be a great big shot in the arm for us all. So anyway, we appreciate everybody. Thank you, Dr. Richard, for being with us, and we wish everybody a good night. Thank you, and happy holiday, Merry Christmas.